Let's be honest for a second. Do you feel that creeping, almost heavy anxiety every time you open the news lately? You know, that nagging worry that artificial intelligence is just inevitably coming for your job, your privacy, and maybe even your entire way of life? Well, if you've been sold this vision of the future, where humans are just sort of pushed to the margins by these omnipotent algorithms, you are absolutely not alone. So, welcome. In this explainer, we're going to unpack the actual reality behind the grand, sweeping prophecies coming out of Silicon Valley. We'll look really closely at how AI predictions are actually made, who they're really serving, and most importantly, how we can reclaim our own future.
Now, this concept of obeying in advance captures a really profound truth from our source material. Think about it. When tech executives stand on their metaphorical mountaintops and declare that AI will inevitably replace the human workforce, our fear kicks in, right? We panic. And in our panic, we just kind of accept their vision of the future as a done deal. But by accepting those assertions, we fall into a trap. We are obeying in advance. It's an incredible Socratic flip. Our very fear of the future is exactly what makes us blindly obey tech executives who, let's be real, are mostly just trying to fulfill their own financial visions.
And you really have to notice how this trick of language is being used against us. Predictions from Silicon Valley almost always sound like descriptions. They sound like undeniable hard facts about tomorrow. But here's the thing, the future is unwritten. So these predictions aren't facts at all. They're actually prescriptions. They're commands. They're basically power plays in disguise, telling you exactly how you need to behave today just so their product becomes absolutely indispensable tomorrow.
Okay, moving on to our first major concept, the Thanksgiving turkey trap, and really, the absolute limits of data. To really understand why these algorithmic predictions are often so deeply flawed, we have to look at how machine learning actually works under the hood. It relies super heavily on Bayesian data. That essentially means taking historical data, analyzing the past, and using it to guess what happens next. And this brings us to a famous and kind of tragic analogy, the Thanksgiving turkey. Imagine a turkey on day 1. It gets fed, so it feels safe. By day 50, it's kept warm and fed even more. By day 100, relying purely on its historical data, the turkey calculates that it's in an environment of maximum safety. But the turkey doesn't know about day 101, Thanksgiving. Collecting past data can falsely make us feel the absolute safest right before a catastrophic, totally unprecedented event. So when AI faces something totally new, like climate change or a novel global event, all that past data is completely blind to the hurricane that's literally on our doorstep.
Let's pivot slightly to Section 2, Myth versus Reality in Medicine.
Now, to be totally fair here, we cannot ignore that AI does hold legitimate, incredible promise, especially in fields like healthcare. For instance, there was a recent Swedish trial that found integrating AI into breast cancer screenings reduced late cancer diagnoses by an impressive 12%. I mean, that is a very real, very positive outcome. Algorithms are genuinely helping doctors spot patterns that save human lives. But, and this is a big but, the crucial point is balancing that incredible promise with a much starker reality. Sure, we have tools promising to detect pancreatic cancer 3 years early, but contrast that with the reality of the COVID-19 pandemic. Dozens of AI tools were deployed on actual patients without proper peer review. And guess what? Later meta-analyses showed that literally none of them were helpful and some were actively harmful. The massive takeaway here is that without human critical thinking and really rigorous guardrails, blindly trusting AI tools can lead to disastrous real-world consequences.
Which brings us to Section 3, Selling the AI Apocalypse, or what we can call the business of dread.
So if AI is prone to such fundamental, basic errors, why on earth are we constantly bombarded with these apocalyptic warnings? Interestingly, the most terrifying existential doomerism is coming directly from inside the tech industry itself. The business of prediction has almost always been a business of dread. We see headlines every single day about tech insiders resigning over safety concerns. Former OpenAI researcher Stephen Adler, for example, flat out stated he was terrified by the pace of development. And this creates an overwhelming atmosphere of existential dread in the public. We are basically being told to imagine Terminator-style scenarios by the exact same people who are typing the code.
But there is a glaring, massive contradiction we really have to unpack here. Take AI pioneer Geoffrey Hinton. He famously left Google sounding the absolute alarm about AI risks. Yet when someone asked him at Oxford what he would do differently if he had to do it all again, he literally replied, nothing. And even joked about still holding his massive company's stock. I mean, we really have to question the sincerity of these prophets of doom when they readily admit they wouldn't change a single thing about their highly lucrative pasts.
Which naturally leads us to ask, is this a genuine existential threat? Or is it just a brilliantly orchestrated marketing strategy? By making AI seem godlike, all-knowing, and world-ending, these executives actually position themselves as our only saviors. They scare the public so thoroughly that we willingly surrender our power, our data, and our money to them, essentially begging them to protect us from the very monsters they claim they're building.
Moving right along to Part 4, the ethics of prediction.
Let's see how this dread actually trickles down into the everyday applications of AI. When corporations use AI to try and completely eliminate their own financial risks, they don't actually destroy that risk at all. They just push it onto the most vulnerable individuals in society. The critical distinction we need to make here is between predicting things and predicting people. Predicting the weather? Safe, useful, totally fine. But predicting people's health or job performance based on past data? That is incredibly dangerous. In fact, the UK Supervisor of Insurance has openly warned that AI is making entire populations completely uninsurable. Think about it. If an algorithm predicts you're going to get sick and raises your premiums so high you can't afford them, the immense stress of that alone creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. It literally makes you sick. The corporation stays totally safe, but society becomes infinitely more vulnerable.
Next up, Part 5, the automation of empire.
Now, this dynamic brings us to what scholars like Karen Ho call the automation of empire. What's happening is government power, military spending, and massive corporate monopolies are all intersecting, and they're increasingly using AI to consolidate control and just completely bypass traditional accountability. Look, if an empire, whether that's a bank or a government, denies you a loan or a job because of a factual math error, you can prove them wrong. You can fight back. But if they deny you based on a black box AI's prediction of your future behavior, you're helpless. A prediction is not a fact. It's not falsifiable. Using predictive AI effectively shields vast power from ever being questioned or held accountable by everyday people.
And that brings us to our final section, reclaiming our human future.
So, how do we push back against all of this? Well, it starts with openly challenging the totalitarian Silicon Valley dream. We are being sold this lovely fairy tale that AI is going to do all the hard drudging work, while humanity just kicks back in a utopian paradise of absolute convenience, living on universal basic income and lounging around. But let me ask you directly, just looking at your own life right now, are you actually working less? Is AI really taking away the boring stuff? Or is it actually automating the fun, creative jobs like writing and design while you are still stuck at a desk drowning in bureaucratic emails? Because the reality of this technology in the workplace starkly contradicts their utopian marketing.
And furthermore, this whole obsession with eliminating all friction entirely misses the point of the human experience. Look at the true value of inconvenience. Having deep friendships, reading a challenging book, taking the time to go vote, raising children, preparing and eating a really good meal. These are all highly inconvenient tasks, yet they're precisely the acts that give human life its raw, textured meaning. The empty promise of frictionless AI convenience is, when you really get down to it, a promise to strip away what makes life worth living.
Which brings us to your most powerful tool in all of this, developing an intellectual immune system. This is the deliberate, conscious refusal to accept corporate predictions as inevitable facts. You see, the magical thing about a prediction is that it only becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy if we actually believe it. By simply noticing that a tech prophecy is just a sales pitch, you immediately dissolve its power over you.
The future is completely unwritten. It's not some data point living on a server out in Silicon Valley. So the ultimate question I want to leave you with today is this. Are you going to buy into their prediction and obey in advance? Or will you reclaim your agency and build your own future? The choice is entirely yours. Keep questioning, keep learning, and thank you so much for exploring with us today in this explainer. Catch you next time.